Every few years, the interior design industry circles back to the exact same debate. We try to figure out if switching to the perfect pricing model will finally eliminate profit leaks and client friction. Selecting a fee structure based on current industry trends, or simply picking what feels easiest to pitch, creates a false sense of security. You are picking a container, but you are not actually managing what goes inside it. Standard models fail when they are used to make business decisions with incomplete information. A fee structure alone cannot calculate the cost of an undefined detail or a vague request. This creates a constant trade-off. You can accept a request instantly to keep the conversation comfortable, or you can pause the project to secure the structural safety of your profit margin. A pricing model defines the container, but it cannot enforce the limits. Its success depends on the visible boundaries you set at the start to protect the work. To see exactly how those boundaries fail, we can look at this quadrant chart mapping client comfort against project profitability. Most projects start in the top right quadrant, where enthusiasm is high, but details are still vague. Over the next few weeks, a decision changes, or a client asks for a quick favor. Because these small changes are often unrecorded to keep the project moving, the scope quietly multiplies, dragging the project toward the low profit zone. The client experiences a smooth process, but this red area represents the financial risk the designer is now silently absorbing to maintain that experience. When the scope expands without a record, working harder or faster will not repair the damage. Extra effort cannot fix a weak pricing structure. Financial failure in these projects is rarely about a lack of design talent. It is the result of lacking a system to contain the natural expansion of undefined work. We can expose where that undefined work hides by looking at how the three standard pricing models handle risk. This comparison matrix highlights the trade-offs. The hourly model is built on exact compensation for exact time spent. The trade-off is that it requires extreme time-tracking rigor and shifts budget unpredictability directly onto the client. This often leads to high anxiety and pushback on invoices. The flat fee model removes anxiety by offering the perception of total financial predictability from day one. However, this shifts 100% of financial risk to the designer. Without strict management, unrecorded revisions are paid directly out of your profit margin. The cost per square foot model is primarily used for speed, allowing for fast initial estimating based on the raw size of a space. But because this model relies on a footprint, it completely ignores project complexity. A high-density room like a kitchen requires significantly more labor than a living room of the same size, making the estimate inherently inaccurate. These inaccuracies occur because standard models often focus on a single metric while overlooking the specific layers of project cost. To find a realistic number, you have to account for labor time, studio overhead, design complexity, financial risk, and net profit. Standard models do not inherently track these 5 variables. They only become visible when you manually force them into your business process. Blindly trusting any of these 3 structures leaves the business exposed. Each requires a rigid external framework to neutralize these specific vulnerabilities. Managing those vulnerabilities requires a strict data-backed 4-part framework. This is the operating system that makes any pricing model functional. Step 1 is to define success. Before reacting to a vague request, you isolate the decision in plain language. This means identifying exactly what information is missing to fulfill the request and officially assigning who owns the next action. Step 2 is to break the issue down into measurable variables. You calculate the impact using historical project data rather than optimistic assumptions about how much time a change will take. Step 3 is to communicate the consequence clearly. You explain the cause and effect relationship to the client, stating what changed and why it matters, rather than citing generic company policies. Providing a clear set of available choices gives the client agency over the budget. It turns a potential conflict into a simple business decision. Finally, step 4. You connect the adjusted fee directly to a precise, documented scope and secure approval before any new work begins. Pausing a project to enforce this framework can feel bureaucratic and momentarily awkward. That awkwardness is the necessary price of admission to protect the project's long-term predictability and your firm's profitability. Transforming vague requests into measurable, approved actions is the only proven way to safeguard both the client relationship and the profit margin. Vague language is the primary driver of scope creep. Saying things like, "We may need to revisit this," only delays conflict until resentment has already built up. Instead, address changes neutrally and immediately. Use a script like, "Based on what changed, I'll summarize the impact, the available options, and anything we need to approve before we continue." This phrasing removes the element of blame. It simply creates a necessary pause for a real decision to be made before the work expands. If the client pushes back, you can offer to reduce the scope or move lower priority items to a later phase. Professional flexibility is valuable when it changes the scope of work, but it should not require you to absorb additional labor for free. For independent designers, boundaries must be documented in writing before they need to be defended. Do not rely on instinct to manage these changes. Run every project change through a final boundary check. Ask, is the impact on time and fee visible? And is the approval documented? If the answer is yes, the project is protected and you can proceed safely. If the answer is no, you must stop, present the available options, and secure documented approval before moving forward. For established studio owners, your framework must be explicitly calibrated to your specific overhead and market risk. Avoid simply copying another firm's procedures. Implementing visible structural boundaries creates a predictable environment for both the designer and the client. This professional structure is the value that allows high-end design work to actually happen.